Recording in progress.
Okay, so we're going to talk about vision and understanding how to turn what you actually want into something that is actually a reality. Eve, my clicker's not working. I'm glad we're testing this right now, guys. Okay, now it's working. I want to start this training just by saying that this is what's missing from most people's plan. And it's also something that you can go to a million real estate conferences, and a lot of the time they won't address this. They will give you a whole bunch of motivation, they'll give you a whole bunch of rah-rah, but they won't address what's actually driving you. And so this, and what we're gonna talk about today, is why most people drift. Most people don't actually know what they want. They only know what they don't want. And so when we don't have that direction, your life fills with other people's priorities. And that's where a lot of the reactivity comes from. I know that agents in general are some of the most reactive people that exist on the planet. But the difference between people who design their lives and those who do just drift is clarity. And so I've been, for years, I've been consuming a lot of content and doing a lot of, I'll call it research, on why people end up with their default reality. Everybody has a default reality. Everybody has a situation where, if they don't do anything or they don't make any changes, that they'll end up with that life. So when you're clear on what you want your life to look like, and we're gonna do this in 3 years, and you're clear on what that looks like 3 years from now, every single decision that you make becomes easier and you don't end up in your default reality. Let me know if this is making sense. So just let me know that this is making sense, because I think that this really understanding why this is so important is really important. The reason why we're gonna talk about 3-year goals and not 1-year goals, 1-year goals are too tactical. Right? 1-year goals are like what you do in a program. 1-year goals are going to be the things that, are the to-dos. 10-year goals are a lot of the time too kind of ethereal. They're too abstract. So 3 years gives you enough time to reinvent yourself. You can literally become a completely different person in 3 years without losing sight of reality and the things that you need to do in order to get there, right? 3 years is kind of like that magic middle. It's far enough to think bigger than your current limits, but close enough to feel actionable and real. And so once you get clear on this, your 3-year vision essentially becomes like your version of your GPS. And then without it, every opportunity sometimes looks like the right one. And so I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this, where you get distracted by a million different opportunities and then you don't actually know which one is the right one. I get this almost all the time when I'm talking to agents in my direct messages and things. People are like, but everybody's trying to sell me something. A lot of the time, if you don't have your 3-year vision really nailed down, everything will look like opportunity, or everything will look the opposite of opportunity, because you don't actually know what you want and you don't actually know what you're building. So the core pillars of a 3-year vision, keep talking to me and keep letting me know that this is actually making sense to you, because I will slow down and I'll clarify things if something's not clear, right? A really powerful vision comes from every single part of your life, not just business or money. And this is really where that more holistic view of how your business fits into your life is really important. Success in one area while ignoring others creates imbalance. When you become imbalanced, which is I think what a lot of people come to us for, right? We end up with a lot of people who are burnt out, they feel guilty, or they just feel like they've kind of lost their sparkle. And so I want you to think about your life as 5 different connected pillars. We've got business and career. So business and career is going to, and if you're taking notes, this is kind of like where the meat comes in. Business and career is what you want to have built in 3 years. How much do you want to earn? What kind of work are you doing within the business? Who are you surrounded by, right? Like what does your workday look like? The next pillar is wealth. So wealth is different than business and career, right? Wealth is, what is your financial situation? What do your investments look like? How much freedom have you actually created? And in, like, through what means? So wealth is the second pillar. The third pillar is health. Health being, how do you feel every day? Are you energized? Are you confident? Are you strong? Are you peaceful? And a lot of the time when we do these things, when we actually audit what we want in 3 years, we become very, very aware of the things that we don't like now, right? So if you were like, oh, I want to feel energized, a lot of the time, if that's the goal is to feel energized, a lot of the time that means that you don't feel energized now. And so kind of understanding what those goals are, a lot of the time those goals will become the opposite of what you don't want. And so a lot of us, like I said in the beginning of this, like a lot of us actually know what we don't want. We just don't know what we actually want. And so what we're doing is we're looking at both. So health is, how do you feel every day? Are you energized? Are you confident? Are you strong? Are you peaceful? Are you like what are the activities that you're doing on a regular basis? Like what is your health, I would say, pillar or section of your life look like? Next is relationships. So who's around you? Who do you spend your time with? What do those relationships feel like, right? And so really understanding who are the people that you are going to invest in the next 3 years. Because you can't invest in everyone, but you also can't only invest in your clients. Because when you only invest in your clients, you end up with an empty life. And recently, I've read a whole bunch of articles about how longevity actually comes from, like, there's kind of two sides of the spectrum. There's people who feel who feel lonely every day, and that's actually one of the main reasons why people don't have longevity. It has nothing to do with, well, it has a lot less to do than we think than health. So loneliness shortens our lifespan. Whereas really, really strong relationships and feeling like we have community does the opposite. So all of this is kind of tied together in terms of like how quote unquote successful your life actually is. The next piece is fulfillment and growth, right? So what lights you up? What are you learning? What are you creating? What are you contributing to? And each of these pillars feeds the other. So when one collapses or when one is not being attended to, the rest of them will wobble. The rest of them will start to feel weak. And so, you know, and I want to make it very clear that there are seasons in your life, right? Like there have been seasons in my life where I have been more business than I have health. We have physically seen that if you've been following me for a long time, right? You will physically have been able to see when it was a season of business and it wasn't a season of health for me, and that's okay, right? But in the long term, we have to focus on all of these pillars or we end up imbalanced, burnt out, or unhappy. So let's talk about the actual process of creating the vision. So the first step is honestly just giving yourself space to be able to dream. At the very beginning of this, Melanie said something about my vibe bed. So I have a vibration and music bed that I use for this. But you can do this laying in your own bed, laying in a bathtub, in a yoga class. Like you can do this in a lot of different ways. But you have to give yourself space with no distractions to dream. So the way that you do this is you start by imagining your life 3 years from now as if everything went right. No logic, no how, and no self-censorship, right? A lot of the times when we start to think about what we want, we start to pull it back because we don't know how. When you're doing a vision process, the most important thing is to forget the how. The how comes later. So and the other thing that is really important here is that we're not writing a to-do list. We're painting a picture. This is where goal setting goes off track, this can't be a to-do list. This has to be an entire painting of what it is that you actually want.
Loading your whiteboard somehow.
I don't know how I'm loading my whiteboard. I haven't touched anything.
Didn't touch anything either.
Is this my whiteboard?
No, it's someone else.
Someone else is like to share this whiteboard. Well, that was interesting. Sorry, guys. We're figuring it out. There's a lot of tech stuff happening over here. But is this making sense so far? Right? Yeah, exactly, right? The how. So Jacqueline's saying like the how becomes really, really, like becomes almost like the barrier. You don't need to know the how in order to do the vision properly. You actually have to learn how to ignore the how, because the how will come. Right? So you're not writing a to-do list. You're painting a picture, you're creating a painting, you're creating a screenplay of what your life is actually going to look like in 3 years. So you have to ask yourself, if everything worked out perfectly, what would my life look like? So the other part of this that some people get stuck on, I know that when I did this with Amy, this was the part that became really important for her, is sometimes you don't even know what's on the menu, right? And so what when we create a vision, we're creating our vision based on what we know is available to us. And so sometimes we need to look outside of our circle and our market to see what could be. Perfect example, I didn't know anybody who moved to the Bahamas. But I had this idea in my head that I wanted to live somewhere tropical. And so I started there, and I started with that dreaming aspect of it. And then I found examples, or I found evidence that it could be done. TV shows. We watched so much Bahamas life before we moved here, right? And so a lot of the time, what we'll do is we'll think of something that is something that we want, and then again, we'll be like, okay, well, I don't know anybody who's done that, or I don't know how to do that, and so then we move on from it. So instead of moving on from it, the next step, for me at least, was to look for evidence that not only could this be done, but that other people were doing it. So basically, I watched a whole bunch of Bahamas Life, and the lesson that I got from that was, if these guys can do it, I can do it. There is absolutely nothing special about these people that I'm watching on this TV show. So TV shows, social media content, right? What I want you to think about is the last time you thought or said, ha ha ha, in another lifetime. We do that in order to stifle dreams. I would love to do that if I didn't have kids. How awful is that you're blaming the inability for you to go after your dreams on your children? Right? I know so many people who have moved to Thailand, who've moved to Bali, who've moved to the Bahamas with their small kids, right? You just need to find evidence that what you want, other people have done. As soon as you do that, everything seems easy. The next step after you figure out what the things that you're choosing on the menu look like is you have to get sensory and you have to get specific. So we've all heard at some point that football players or high-level athletes, I don't know why I said football of all the sports, the one sport that I fully don't understand. All these high-level athletes, like performers, those kinds of people, they visualize what they want. They visualize the win before they do anything. I actually read a study the other day. I said read. I will be fully honest with you. I found it on TikTok first, but then I did actually read it. So I'm not one of those people who's saying I read something, even though I just watched a video. I read a study that was 2 different sets of people, and one set of people lifted weights every day, and the other set of people meditated and pictured themselves lifting weights every day. Both sets of people gained muscle. It's wild how powerful our brains actually are. So That example goes into this next section. The more sensory you get, the more real it becomes in your brain. So ask yourself more specific questions about you in 3 years, right? Where are you waking up? What do you see? What do you hear? What do you smell? What do you taste? What do you feel? The more you can make that real, the more you can paint it so vividly that someone else could step into your life and feel it, the more successful you'll be at this. So the subconscious doesn't distinguish between imagined and real, right? That's why this is super, super powerful. Then we write it down. I created, so this is going to sound a little bit crazy, but on a flight to Bali in 2017, early 2018, for some reason, I find that planes are really good for this because like there's no distractions and like what else are you gonna do? I sat on a plane and I wrote in present tense exactly where I wanted to be 3 years from then. I pictured the layout of my house, where the pool was, what it looked like, what it smelled like, what it sounded like. I pictured myself waking up in the morning and what my morning looked like. I pictured myself making coffee and walking out onto a deck and what I was looking at and what, like, I did it in so much detail and it is so crazy. Completely forgot about this and I found it a couple of months ago and I reread it. I live in that house. I live in the house with the exact layout that I had written down. The kitchen is in the back left-hand side of my house when I am looking out at my pool and the water. Like everything is exactly how I imagined it, and it's almost like I created it before I created it. So when we write it down, we're using present tense words. I am, not I will. Never I want, always I have. So I am living in. I am leading a team of. Right? You're training your brain to act like the future is already happening. And then for every part of your vision, you have to connect it to emotion. Because emotion is the driver for why we actually do anything that is involved with change or that's hard. So you have to ask yourself for each section, why does this matter to me? Because if we're going to be cliche, emotion creates motion. When it feels deeply personal, you'll find the drive to execute. A lot of the time when someone says to me, I joined the listings lab and I haven't done it, or I haven't executed the way that I thought that I would, the first thing that we need to do is we need to connect it with emotion. Because emotion will create the drive to execute. Sometimes I'll ask the question, and if you've been to any of our events, you know this, who loses when you don't win? Who in your life, in your family, your kids, your partner, when you don't go after the things that you need to go after or that you want to go after, right? Who loses? Without emotional connection, a vision becomes just a wish list. So we have to create that emotion. I haven't looked at any of these notes. All right. I do this with wasting, habit forming, reminds me of the vivid vision. 3-year goal setting. 100%, but we're not calling it goal setting because goal setting is very different than vision creation. And I really want to make sure that you guys are differentiating the two. Vision creation is a lot more, I'm going to say a lot more effective, right? Goal setting, a lot of people set goals and then just kind of forget about them. So after we've gone through this whole process, right? We've gone through the 5 pillars of your vision. We've connected it to emotion. We've created the very, very intense picture in your head. We've written it down in present tense. You combine everything into a 1 to 2 page story that reads like the movie of your life 3 years from now. It should sound like it's January 2028. I wake up in a house that feels peaceful. My team runs without me, so I don't have to jump on my computer right away. I'm traveling. I'm mentoring people on my team. I'm in the best shape of my life. You can paint your day and make it something that you want to reread. It's not a spreadsheet, it's not a list, it's not goal setting, but it's a narrative that pulls you forward and makes you want to read it all the time. I am very, I like to write things down. I journal every single day. And so I wrote that down, and that was really, really good for me. I know other people who actually have written it down and then recorded themselves reading it in their own voice, and they listen to that every day. And that is something that really works for them, right? So once your 3-year vision feels really clear, then we get to reverse engineer it. So you get to ask yourself, if this is where I am in 3 years, what has to be true 1 year from now? Because then we're able to actually break the 1-year version into quarterly targets. So we then get to build those 90-day sprints that build momentum and make sure that you're always moving towards that 3-year vision. I know people who have done this 3-year vision exercise with us and who in a year have been like, I'm at my 3-year vision and it only took a year. I get to do this again. But the key here is that most people who don't do this exercise, and there's people here who are watching this who aren't going to do this. There's people here who are watching this who are like, oh, this is, it's not tactical. It's not social media advice. She's not telling me what time to post. And therefore, I'm going to ignore it because it feels too ethereal. And those people won't actually hit their targets, right? Because they're drifting. They're looking for a quick fix. They know what they don't want, but they're not super, super clear on what it is that they do want. And therefore, they will make more mistakes than the people who are really focused and clear. And they'll also get off track with what my friend Jen calls seductive distractions. Everything will look like an opportunity when you're not clear. So we have to create something that is more memorable. Your future has to be more memorable and more exciting than anything that you've done in the past. Because what we're doing is we're fighting against the past. So we want to focus on identity-based targets instead of just outcomes. Instead of I want to lose 15 pounds, you want to say something like, I am someone who treats my body like an asset. I am the $1 million racehorse, right? You change it into something that is identity-based. I am someone who. Instead of, I want to double my business, I am the kind of leader who builds systems that scale. And then you align your daily habits with the person your 3-year vision requires you to be. The person who you are today is not the person who reaches your goals. If that were true, you would already have all of those things. You have to become a completely different person in order to have all of the things that you ultimately want. So every morning you get to ask yourself, what would the future version of myself do today? And you need to become essentially best friends with that future version of yourself. Future Jess is someone I talk to all the time. My journal is like a constant conversation between me and future Jess. So now we figure all of that out, then we get to integrate it. How does this work on a day-to-day basis? There are people who will go through very deep vision work and then forget about it. Or write it down. It's kind of like having core values that you put on the wall and you never revisit. Your vision only works if you live it consistently. So you have to read or listen to it, daily if not weekly. Weekly if not daily. Train your brain, your reticular activating system, to focus on what matters. use it as a decision filter, right? If something doesn't align with that future version of you, it's a no. It makes it super, super easy. If you are clear, you know whether or not something's going to get you closer or further from what it is that you actually want. Then you get to journal or whatever works for you from your future self's perspective. Write it, like I said earlier, as if you already are that person. The next part that's really important is that you don't just keep it to yourself. You have to share that vision with someone who can hold you accountable. Whether it's a coach or a partner or a friend, you have to say it out loud because that will build conviction. The very first thing that I did when I got home from Bali is I gave that whole document that I had written on the plane to my husband. Because that was one of the most important parts of all of this, was that I had shared it with someone and we had gotten on the same page. And the very first time I walked into this house, I called him and I said, this is it. And he gave me a million excuses as to why this house wasn't right for us. At the time, it was part of a hotel. It wasn't even a freestanding house. But I walked in and I was like, nope, this is it. And because I had that clarity, all of the other obstacles that felt like obstacles to someone who didn't have that vision that I had felt like obstacles. They felt like no's. But I knew that this was the right place and I knew that this was correct. And so all of those other things became just things that I needed to solve for. So after all of that, what's the one thing? If you haven't done this any vision work, then feel free to just kind of like sit and chill through this part. But what's one thing in your 3-year vision that excites you or scares you the most? Right? So John's saying everything seems like an opportunity when you're not clear on what you want. 100%. You have to fall in love with the person who you are going to become, but you also have to be aware of the gap between who you are now and who that person is. And every single day, it is your I would say like your job to close that gap and essentially behave like future you would. How can we bring this type of like clarity to our clients after you do it yourself? Here's the thing that happens so often with people in business, especially people in real estate. You cannot teach something and you cannot take somebody through an exercise until you have mastered it yourself. Because then what you're doing is you're regurgitating. The only reason why I feel comfortable sharing all of this with you is because I've been doing it for years. And I've created so many things because of this. So you have to live it and embody it before you can teach it. And that's why there's so many, I'm going to say the things that everyone's thinking. There's so many bad programs out there. There's so many like mediocre coaches out there because they're taking things from other people and they're regurgitating them and they're not actually living, they're not walking the walk and they're not living it. And here's the thing with vision, right? Is that like, let's say that you picture this absolutely like incredible version of your life in 3 years and you work towards that vision and you do all the things and you make decisions based on your future self. What happens if you only get 2/3 of the way there? Would that be worth it? And I think for most people, the answer to that is yes. Because you are so much further ahead than you are today. So this kind of exercise and this kind of like, I'm almost going to say pull forward because, again, I'm going to quote my friend Jen, you don't go to your vision, you come from it. And that's so nuanced, but like when you truly understand the clarity and your vision and like and you try to embody it every day, you come from it. Everything that you do comes from that vision. It's not something that you're going towards. It's something that you're coming from. So what's one thing in your 3-year vision that excites or scares you the most? Fear and excitement often show you where your growth is waiting or what is actually holding you back. The reason why it feels scary or exciting is because that's actually the area, or that area is actually where you need the most work. And your vision isn't static, right? It's living, it's breathing. Your documentation of it is going to evolve as you do. The things that you desire are going to change as you change. But the goal for any of this is not perfection, it's direction. You are going to have the clarity to make decisions every single day of your life. That future version of yourself, what do they do when they first wake up in the morning? Do they pick up their phone? Or do they journal, right? So if you can see it clearly enough, you can create it. And that's the overlying piece of all of this. If you can see it clearly enough, you can create it. But if you can't see it clearly, you won't create it and you'll get pulled in a lot of directions. That's why this becomes so important. Okay. Yes, John. So John is saying one thing that scares me is the feedback that I'll get from my sphere about the new me. Yep. Here's the thing about growth. Growth will release the people who no longer are your people, but will bring an entirely new set of incredible people into your life. You will leave people behind. And that is part of growth. That's actually the best part of growth, is that the people who actually hold you back, those people are not actually your people. Because people who require you to stay small in order for them to feel comfortable with you, those are not ultimately your people. All right, so what else do I have in here? What would you create a vision only the most this might be, but would you create a vision only for one most important business type? Let's say my unlimited vision is to create multiple business. Should I let myself dream, yes, absolutely. Right? And that the thing is that like in 3 years, multiple businesses and multiple successful businesses may not be something that is necessarily going to happen in 3 years. But it's okay to envision it because that may be more like, 7 to 10 years. The key to all of this is understanding that the clarity that comes from this will help you make better decisions. But also understanding that you don't know what you don't know. So a lot of the time, again, people start, as soon as they get the vision solidified, they start to like focus on the how. And the how is something that you actually have to kind of release, because the how will show up and the opportunities will show up when you're looking for them and when you're open to them. What else do I got here? Negative self-talk is the biggest distraction, 100%. And so this is why you have to revisit this every single day, right? And you have to get excited about what it is that you're creating every single day. Otherwise, there's other people's self-talk, your self-talk, the desire, the seductiveness of comfort will pull you backwards. And so all of this is again, the reflections, the daily habits. This is what will actually keep you moving forward. I don't know one person who has many, many, many millions of dollars and is happy. I'm going to preface that with happy, and has like a full and fulfilling life that doesn't do vision work almost every day. I've been surrounded by millionaires, billionaires. I had a conversation with a guy who has more money than I will ever be able to fathom in a pool in Costa Rica once. And he does vision work every single day, every single morning. And that's how he starts his day, because everything that he's created has come from reverse engineering, from the clarity of what he ultimately wants and who he ultimately wants to be. Yeah, you have to fine tune things, including people, right? Not every person you meet is meant to be your best friend. And there are people who come into your lives for a season. All right. Bup. Okay, I think we're good. I think I got through everything and everyone's questions. I would love for you guys to do a little bit of this work and then send me an email and really start to chunk it down into what are the things that are going to get me there faster? What are the things that I can do in my day-to-day life that I would become that future version of myself more quickly? Because you can take that three-year vision and you can collapse time, but you're not going to do that just like by yourself in front of your computer. With all that being said, always you will go further faster with people, with help, than you will ever go on your own. Okay, cool. Let's the last thing that I just want to, books to read. Vivid Vision by Cameron Herold is a really great vision book. I would read that if you haven't already. He's the person who coined this whole vivid vision situation. It's a really good starting point. And then after you read that, if you want a more in-depth vision book, just send me an email and I'll send you a list. Okay, so if you're not signed up for the virtual event, I do still have a handful of tickets left. I will be here, right here, in this setup for that 3 days. And you can expect some pretty incredible magic. You can expect to have a game plan for your next year based on your vivid vision. So you will leave that 3 days with a tactical, strategic plan for 2026 from that event. So, so you can send me an email. You can, let me grab that document if you haven't already looked at it, and we can get you signed up. I believe that we only have, like I said, we only have a couple of tickets left. Because they've been going quickly. Carolee, I have a million documents open right now. Can you drop the link for the virtual event? I think that it should be, oh, here it is, I found it, never mind. I got it. It's literally just a Google Doc. So the tickets, the link to buy the tickets are further down in the document if you want to come. I would highly suggest it, especially at this time of year. Going into November, you should have all of your planning done for 2026 by mid-November. People leave it way too late and start doing this stuff in January or like at the end of December. And that's not what you want to be doing. You want to be completely planned out for 2026 by mid-November, because you can start making progress and getting everything set up that you need to in order to hit the ground running. Otherwise, so many people end up like they waste the whole first quarter of the year trying to get sorted out and trying to figure out what it is that they're doing for the year. So the time is kind of now. Cool. Grab a ticket. Like I said, I only have a handful left. So the cutoff for that current pricing is, the event is in like 10 days. So that current pricing is It probably will last until the tickets are sold out, but I am cutting off the number of tickets that we're selling. Just I think that some people just assume because it's virtual that we can sell as many tickets as we want, and that's not the case. We want to keep this event just as personal and just as valuable and just as hands-on as any in-person event that we ever do. So everyone is going to get time with us and with coaches, and that is really, really important to me. So we are cutting it off. Actually, we're cutting it off at less than we would cut off our in-person event. So it's going to be a smaller event than even our in-person events normally are. Cool. So hopefully I will see you at that event. If not, I will see you back here next Thursday. And I don't know what I'm talking about next Thursday, but if you're in the Facebook group, you'll find out. You'll find out at some point this week. Do this work. Do the vision work. It is more than any other work, it is worth it. And then send me emails and let me know how things have gone. Cool. Go forth. Go do wonderful things this week, and I'll see you next week. Bye, guys.